Alright, I just gave you a long pep talk on why your job as an E4 audiobook reader is important and why you should pursue it with passion and with love. But sometimes that can be a little hard to apply in the real world. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you two parallel clips of the same work. I'm going to read it once with very little preparation and also with very little passion to actually interpret the words that I'm reading. As you can see, this is a book by G.A. Henty. He's one of our primary sources, one of the things that we use the most, one of the authors that we use the most. This particular book is called In the Reign of Terror. It's a story about the French Revolution. This was written for boys in the 19th century, and as you can probably already tell if you've read any G.A. Henty, it can definitely be archaic. It's hard to interpret this for the modern mind, but it's worth it. Once you get into these stories, they're usually stories of that have very clear dichotomies between good and evil. There's an understanding of piety. Sometimes we don't agree with everything that G.A. Henty is saying, but they're good, strong adventure stories with good lessons for boys, and that are usually very well told once you get into the style of his writing. So what I'm going to show you is what this looks like when I don't care about what I'm reading, when I'm just confused by it, and how that gets over in my voice. It's easy to do with these older works, so we're going to start with the preface. So I'm reading straight through this just as though I was recording. Like I said, very little preparation. In the Reign of Terror, The Adventures of a Westminster Boy by G.A. Henty. Preface. My dear lads, this time only a few words are needed, for the story speaks for itself. My object has been rather to tell you a tale of interest than to impart historical knowledge, for the fact of the dreadful time when the terror reigned supreme in France are well known to all educated lads. I need only say that such historical allusions as are necessary for the sequence of the story will be found correct, except that noyades at Nantes did not take place until a somewhat later period than is here assigned to them. Sincerely yours, G.A. Henty. Chapter 1, A Journey to France. I don't know what to say, my dear. Well, surely, James, you're not thinking for a moment of letting him go. I don't know. Yes, I'm certainly thinking of it, though I haven't at all made up my mind. There are advantages and disadvantages. Oh, but it's such a long way in to live among those French people who have been doing such dreadful things. Well, they won't eat him, my dear, the French Assembly or the National Assembly or whatever it is. And so, as you can see, I'm already getting myself into trouble because I don't know who's talking. I haven't really prepared, and look at this. This is just a long string of almost untagged dialogue. So if I haven't looked through it beforehand, I have no idea who's talking. You have to gather clues from the actual text. So we go on, and it's also, I'm going to read this little part here. Well, they won't eat him, my dear. The French Assembly or the National Assembly or whatever it ought to be called has certainly been passing laws limiting the power of the king and abolishing many of the rights and privileges of the nobility and clergy. But you must remember that the condition of the vast body of the French nation has been terrible. We've long conquered our liberties, and indeed never, even in the height of the feudal system, were the mass of the English people more enslaved as have been the peasants of France. That sentence is absolutely against everything we know about natural speech. And if you read it that way, you're going to lose immediately the interest of your readers. They are not going to even stay for that long because they know just by listening to you that you have no interest in interpreting this for them. This is hard material. You're like a professor who looks at something that his students cannot understand, and you learn to explain it to them. And yet you have limitations that even a professor does not have, because all you can do is use the tones of your voice. You can't use your face, you can't use expression in your eyes, you can't use pictures, you can't use any of that. The only tool that you have is your voice. And so because of that, you have to use it absolutely beautifully to bring out little nuances in the sentences. You have to learn to teach people through your voice. Now, another problem area that you're going to see with G.A. Henty is that he often launches into these long, explanatory, very dry and boring portions. There's one a little way down from here, talking about Dr. Sandwith and Chelsea in 1790. you can very easily let your attitude about this show when you get to these portions just read through them straight like a buzzsaw and not really bring out anything. But these are actually very important portions, and these will be a test of your ability as a reader. Can you make these interesting? Can you bring out those little words? I'm going to read through this like a buzzsaw, and then I'm going to go back and read the beginning dialogue and down to this portion with feeling. Okay? So Dr. Sandwith was a doctor in Chelsea. Chelsea in the year 1790 was a very different place to Chelsea of the present day. It was a pretty suburban hamlet and was indeed a very fashionable quarter. Here many of the nobility and personages connected with the court had their houses, and broad country fields and lanes separated it from the stern din of London. Dr. Sandwith had a good practice, but he also had a large family. Harry was at Westminster, going backwards and forwards across the fields to school. So far he had evinced no predilection for any special career. He was a sturdy, well-built lad of some 16 years old. He was, as his father said, not likely to set the Thames on fire in any way. He was as undistinguished in the various sports popular among boys in those days as he was in his lessons. He was as good as the average, but no better, had fought some tough fights with boys of his own age, and had shown endurance rather than brilliancy. Did you notice that each one of my sentences ended in the same way, with a small fall in my voice? That's because I was simply falling into the groove. I was just stopping at the end of the sentence. That was, there was no specialness about any of those sentences. I didn't vary the way that my voice sounded at all. I didn't bring out specific words. If you had just been listening to me, you probably wouldn't have gotten any of that. You couldn't repeat anything that I just said. And you didn't enjoy it either. So now let's go back, and we're going to try that again.